You may be seated. Ah, yes, we get to hear about those magi again. Each year, the first Sunday of the year, we listen once more to the story of these fanciful strangers who come from afar. These mysterious travelers who made their way from another land following the star while they donned the extravagant gifts that they carried so that they would have the chance to offer them to the Christ child. The Magi's appearance in the gospel, and especially at this crucial moment of Jesus' young life, leads one to wonder, why are they there at all? Some years ago, I read an article in The Economist, of all places, that suggested this story and these characters might be the most interesting in all of the Bible. In part because they don't seem to make any sense being there, and they emerge from out of nowhere. In a book so decidedly Jewish in nature as Matthew's gospel is, the Magi aren't Jewish. They are outsiders, way outside. I suppose we're wise to leave ourselves some time then to consider why they are there at all. And also, as those of us who are outsiders to this Jewish story, these strangers might be companions to us too. However, as much as we might want to consider the meaning of the Magi, for now I'd like to suggest that they have something to teach us. I think their actions are a call to us, for they paid attention to the signs in the world. They responded, following the star until it first led them to Jerusalem, where they met Herod. And then he conscripted those who could interpret the scriptures wisely and that would further guide the Magi on their journey. Then, with the additional details that they learned in Jerusalem from the ancient scriptures, the star once more led them the rest of the way to the place where Jesus could be found. As I mentioned last week, if you were here, so it is with the Magi. They are participating in the work of discernment, paying attention and making the journey that what they learned led them to as they made their way to find Jesus. They went on a long journey. Now that language, journey, has been a common and a helpful metaphor for how we think about the Christian life. It's a way that we can consider these lives of faith not as static entities, but lives that are moving somewhere. More importantly, moving toward something. This has been a guiding metaphor for us in the life of this congregation at various times. I came here as your associate pastor when Pastor Sherry was lead pastor here. And this was one of the themes that she would return to often. Is we're on a journey. We're on a journey together. In our current moment, we have people who are preparing to take a literal journey together. In March, even though Pastor Ryan has his first Sunday in Waverly today, we'll be leading some of you. Will you raise your hand if you're headed on the Camino? There's a hand there and there. Got some folks over here, some others. I think about 14 people who are going on a pilgrimage, on a journey with one another on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. For those of us whose hands are we're not in the air, who will remain stateside, Stephanie Hefner has developed a plan for us to walk in support of those travelers and to pray with them, making our own journey You may have heard about Pilgrim Pals. You can talk to her if you're interested in that. At the heart of this journey metaphor is the affirmation, though, that our faith is not static. We are not just going to church and being stuck there. But our faith ought to be, is a movement toward God and growth in that direction with each new step that we take. And because of that, we are wise to pay attention to the Magi's long journey that led them to Jesus. And when the Magi reached where the star had led them, they arrived at the destination. They saw Mary and the child. As Jane read for us, they knelt down and they paid homage to the child. Now, we sang about it, and it's easy to focus in on those extravagant gifts that they gave. But before they gave anything from their hands, they humbled themselves, honored the child, and they gave of themselves in paying homage. Professor and hymn writer Tom Troger notes the importance of that order, paying homage of the giving of ourselves before we are the doers or the givers of the gifts that we have, is a way in which we recognize the importance of Jesus, and only then offering the gifts that God has given us. And then, after they did that, after they paid homage, gave their gifts, they left. But as they had been warned by the dream, they didn't return, they didn't retrace their steps back through Jerusalem, but they went home by another road. They went a different way. As they returned home after they had experienced this moment with Jesus, they were not going to cross the paths with those who wanted to snuff Jesus' light out. They went home by another way. I want to reiterate what I said last Sunday. It's important that in this year to come, or this year that we've just started, that we pay attention. That we pay attention by following the dreams, noticing the embodied ways in which God might be speaking to us, and looking even in natural places for the signs that might guide us. It's all over these Advent and Christmas stories. Mary and Joseph, Elizabeth, Zechariah, the shepherds, and now the Magi too. They joined in a long line of people who responded to God, to what God was telling them they ought to do. And for each, with the journeys they took, they found new facets, new possibilities, even a newness of life. For the Magi, it meant that they were not going to retrace their steps, but they were going to journey on a new path in a new way. How one listens makes all the difference for the journeys that God calls us to make in this life. The seasons of Advent and now the season of Christmas that we are in have so much to tell us about how God is at work in the world. And it has a great deal to teach us about how we are called to respond to what God is doing in the world. Like all those early travelers I just named who walked with Jesus in the early days of his life on this planet. For us, too, it makes all the difference how we listen, how we respond. Whether we're planning on staying put this year or if you will be a world traveler in the year to come, the metaphor of journey is one that can help us frame our lives and consider the things that we are moving toward, or things we ought to be moving toward. For the Magi, it was following the star. But for us, there may be countless ways in which we pay attention, various ways that can guide us along the paths as well. I'm not sure what this year has in store for us, but I have a renewed calling to a deeper life of prayer and listening for God's guidance for each step. And I would suggest that as we take time for those practices, it's a step on the journey in the right direction. For others, maybe you need to take a step to more intently pay attention to the ancient scriptures once more, to read them with a heart that's open, recognizing that they still hold the power to reshape our lives here and now. Another step in the right direction. For some, it may be a year of committing to traveling in the company of others. Is this a time to explore a new ministry or study group, or be more intentional about inviting folks out for coffee and connecting with them? Maybe you need to step out and join others who are making the journey in courageous ways. Maybe there are places like a protest or a city council meeting or somewhere else where God is inviting you to show up, to make your voice heard. Another step along the way. Maybe you have some other practice in mind that you can foster that would allow you to pay attention and to listen for the ways that God is leading here and now. A friend of mine and a pastor in our annual conference wrote in a conference communication this past week of a practice she uses. It's a daily reflection. Some might call it an examine. She uses John Wesley's general rules. Maybe we'd all be wise to take a few minutes each evening to consider, have I done good? Have I done no harm? Have I attended to all the things that God has called me to do? It could take 3 or 4 minutes, but it'd be another step on the journey along the way. Whatever way that we intend to make the journey, the Magi remind us of the importance of taking one step after another, after another, after another. And each step along the way will make all the difference. Returning to our gospel lesson here. Herod and all those who ruled from Jerusalem were terrified at the news that there was another kind of power and that their reign might be in danger. They were afraid, even as they stayed put in their central place of power. But the Magi, those travelers, were transformed by their journey, by the homage they paid, by the offering of the gifts that they brought, by the going home a different way. Indeed, their transformation was seen in that they no longer went to the places where they would interact with the purveyors of death, but they went home and they sustained life by going home a different way. They were transformed by the encounter with the one who brings peace. No wonder, while those who were in Jerusalem were terrified, those who traveled, it tells us, were overwhelmed with joy as they went. I have to believe that those who will still take the journey, follow God's signs, commit to pay homage, offer the gifts that we have, that there is still joy to be found. And I have to believe that there's still overwhelming joy to be found. Thanks be to God. Amen.